Episode 186 of the Interpretation Station is called to order. Bienvenidos, ladies and gentlemen, the Lusophone speakers among you interpreters. Welcome to a new episode, the first of its kind in about a year. I can't remember when the last episode that I made for the Portuguese speakers amongst you. And the reason I make a Portuguese episode today is because I am lucky enough to have back with me another old friend of the show. We had an old friend, my Italian old friend the other day, Sara Molinari. Well, here I have one of my other original old friends, Brandon Moult. Brandon is joining us from Brussels. He is an interpreter at, well, he will tell you. Brandon, let me know, tell everybody what you've been up to, basically, since we last made an episode here. Welcome to the show. Welcome back.
Thanks, Rodan. Yeah, it's good to be back. I think it's more than a year since
Possibly.
we last did a video. But I've been very busy and lots of things have changed for me since our last recording.
Do tell.
So at that time, I was based in Cape Town, South Africa, and to work on the private market, like bit by bit. But I got a big break. I was very lucky to get into the EU market, and so I'm now based in Brussels. And I work for the European Parliament, for the European Council, for the European Commission. And still with Portuguese and French. Those are still my languages. I've got a couple coming up maybe next year and onward. But for now, that's where all my attention is. And yeah, just having a really good hard and enjoying the diversity of the different subjects that we deal with at work every day.
So this is a big change, as I say, since last time, because last time when Brandon, I think we did about 8 or 9 episodes previously, I would say. And back then, Brandon was just a budding interpreter with high hopes, a lot of skill, but didn't yet have any certification. Well, now he has got a certification. Okay, so now he knows what he's talking about. Okay, so I don't want to hear any criticism. Oh, he doesn't work at the Parliament. He doesn't know. He's just sort of guessing. No. Brandon works at the Council. He works at the Commission. He works at the Parliament. He effing well does know what he is talking about. So that's great, and it's all thanks to appearing on the Interpretation Station. Of course, that's why. I mean, it's all because of that, obviously.
All thanks to you. Thank you.
It's all thanks to me. It's all thanks to me. Brandon, tell me what have you got what have we got lined up today? What statement have you found for us?
So this one is a speech given at the European Parliament in what they call the plenary session. So it's when they all go down to Strasbourg for a week every month. And what happens
I did that once when I did my exchange with the European Parliament in 2014. I was at the European Parliament for 1 month. I remember going down to Strasbourg for a week. But anyway, sorry, carry on.
So this is going to be Isabel Santos, who I have actually interpreted for real. So I definitely know what I'm talking about. And she's going to give this relatively brief introduction to a report that she did, as she's one of the rapporteurs. In fact, she is the rapporteur for a report that was done. I don't know very much about the report itself, but it is about the establishment of the EU Drugs Agency. So the topic of the speech is going to be drugs. And just a couple of notes on the speech itself. We will give you the link for it.
Yeah, that's going to go in the description box as usual.
Yes, and you will also find the PDF, which I have before you right now. So what I want to stress for the speech is that it was very fast, and that's a characteristic of plenary speeches. And so coming into the speech, my goal was not to say absolutely everything that Isabel Santos was going to say, because I can't. If I did try, I would probably mess it up, and I might stutter and stumble over my words because I'm trying to get so much out. And so my approach was to say as much as I can by saying as little as necessary, if that makes sense. And so if she used 10 words to describe one simple idea, I used 3 words and just try to keep it simple. And yeah, so
I
we're
can
gonna
I
go
can
through
attest
it
that
bit by bit.
it was very fast. I mean, when I listened to it, I mean, because okay, so I mean, I don't have Portuguese or anything in my combination. I can, when I look at Portuguese text, I can understand 95% of it, but I don't speak Portuguese. But anyway, I had the text in front of me and I was listening to it, and it was coming out very quickly, I have to say. So yeah, all the links will be in the description box. I must say that the EU, the setup on the website is incredibly good. Now you can find all these statements there now with the full text, the recording.
Yeah.
When I wasn't aware that this massive leap had taken place. It's such a great resource. How long has it been like that for?
Well, I discovered it a month ago, so I have no idea.
I mean, it's brilliant. It's great. It also, I mean, obviously the episodes I do tend to be more UN centric, okay, but I would still very much advise anyone who's you know, interpreting to listen to the statements in the European Parliament. They tend to be delivered. The delivery is, I find, much more sort of laconic. I don't know. It's much more spontaneous. The UN statements tend to be, you know, prepared in advance, and they tend to be quite formulaic. And that's what I found when I worked in the European Parliament for that month in 2014. The style of delivery is somewhat more more spontaneous. Even if the speech is actually already prepared, somehow it's delivered in a more, I don't know, the speakers, yes, I guess, are maybe it's just better delivery generally. And so I'd very much advise anyone to really explore the UN site. You have now there's just a mass of good resources there with the recordings, with the text of the statements. It is terrific. Yeah. So well done. Pat on the back for whoever managed to organize all that. Anyway, so the way we're going to do this is, so Brandon has got his recording. We're going to go through, he's going to go through his own recording, tell us what he liked, you know, what he would have changed, what he would have added. I'll be chipping in with some of my ideas as well. The best option for you guys watching is I would record yourselves, give the statement a try. Maybe we can put a link to the report. Maybe an idea would be to give yourself like 5-10 minutes to read through some of the report, to skim through the report, see if you can get some of the key vocab, and then go and do the text, record yourself, and then come and watch me and Brandon breaking it down. Because I think that's pretty much the way that Brandon approached it. It was a first attempt, wasn't it? Just pretty much off the cuff.
Correct.
Okay, let's get going then. So the next voice you'll hear is Brandon.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, Madam Commissioner, dear colleagues. 30 years ago, we created the European Monitoring Centre for Drugs and Drug Addiction, and 28 years ago, we created, that's when it became official. Okay, so quite clearly, I saw the ball, you know, being kicked to the left of the goal, and I jumped to the left, and then it actually went to the right. And
wrong-footed,
I thought she was going to speak about a different institution that they started 28 years ago, not 30 years ago. So that's why I was going in that direction. And then I found out that she was about the entrada em funcionamento, which is the entry into force of that long word called the European Monitoring Centre for Drugs and Drug Addiction. And so, not a great start to the speech, but I simply had to, you know, reformulate and continue.
Sometimes you just have to think on your feet and, as you say, reformulate. Well, I was just going to say, sometimes when I hear, you know, 30 years, sometimes I'll say 30 years have come and gone since whatever it was happens. That's sometimes what I use. I was also thinking the observatory entry into force, as Brandon's got written down there. I was just wondering, I mean, institutions, I suppose they come into force. I was thinking maybe we'd say in English more, you know, it became operational. You know, I think, you know, laws come into force. Institutions maybe tend to become operational more. Minor detail. It's just, you know, if you've been caught on the hop like that, then you just have to say what the first thing that really comes to mind. But just to give you an alternative idea.
And also just point out vocabulary-wise, tóxico dependencia is going to be drug addiction itself.
Drug addiction, okay.
It's not really that self-evident, I don't think.
Okay.
Okay, moving on.
Mm-hmm.
And we can see it's been a success. It's been a good step towards instituting the European Drugs Agency. There is an example of where I just took the one word that I thought was the most important because I was a little bit behind, having had to reformulate. And she said, so I thought, okay, it's been a success. That's important. And also, yeah, then here, just vocabulary, rumo a alguma coisa is always in the direction towards something. And what do you think about my choice of saying the institution of the EU Drugs Agency?
I think you
would have
could
said
institute,
establishment.
yeah, you could, but I think you can institute agencies as well. Maybe establish, create is maybe a little bit better, but I think we can also in English, that word does exist, and I think, you know, it's okay. How would you do this first sentence now, just with the, you know, now that you can just look at it in calmly, as it were, without being on mic? How would you perhaps reformulate that whole first sentence?
Madam Chair, Madam Commissioner, dear colleagues, 30 years have come and gone since we created the European Monitoring Centre for Drugs and Drug Addiction, and it's been 28 years since it became operational. We are therefore celebrating its success and the fact that it has been a step in the right direction towards establishing the EU Drugs Agency.
Okay. I like how you split it up into two sentences, and you need to, you do that very well actually in this text. You break up these sort of longer sentences into smaller chunks. So that's
you have no choice with Portuguese.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go on.
And this has been up to the task of the challenges that we face. We know the dynamics of the market, which are more and more complex. It means that we need to have better ways of getting involved. Okay, so quite a few omissions in that part because of the speed. I think the main ideas here were the challenges that they've faced, those have been overcome in a sense. Because a altura de alguma coisa is, you know, being up to the task,
commensurate to a step, something. Commensurate to the to live up to the challenge, to rise to the challenge. Yeah. Those are good collocations, I think, with challenge. Meeting, a step towards meeting the challenge. Yeah.
And she spoke about dinâmicas de mercado e de consumo. I tried, as you could, I tried to split that up and be a bit more quotational, saying we know what the dynamics of the market are, the way drugs are consumed, and how this is more and more converged. And then finally, yeah, I think that my one wasn't very good. I would have rather said these, for these reasons, we need a new, what did you say? Intervention capacity? That doesn't sound right to me.
I think it's, I mean, a new capacity for intervention and policy design. I can imagine myself saying that. Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to highlight something. We have a very constructive attitude here amongst the rapporteurs, as well as the shadow rapporteurs, as well as the representatives from Commission, Council, and Parliament. Thanks to them, we've been able to achieve this provisionary agreement on the new EU Drugs Agency. Okay. Not my finest hour either. There's a lot here which I intentionally left out. For example, this is not really necessary. She's saying,
yeah, these little
yeah, so she could have said, you know, she was saying rightly so.
Right.
I mean, was it really necessary in the moment? I don't think so.
Because it's only fair, right? That's one of those little asides that when you have a speaker who's going that fast, that you can probably leave out. It's nice. I mean, obviously that aside, it does have a, you know, it does carry some weight. You know, there's a reason why she said it. I mean, so it's nice if you can get it in. Again, leaving it out doesn't upset the rest of the sentence, though. So again, it's something you have to decide there and then, really.
And then my mistake was I thought that she was speaking about, you know, the rapporteurs themselves and how they had worked together, but actually it was the shadow rapporteurs.
You'd already said rapporteurs when, yeah, you were right. You must have been right behind. You were right behind her, presumably, and then you hear sombra,
Yeah.
and then you sort of add, okay, you slipped it in such a way as that the listener wouldn't know that you'd made a mistake, which is always one of the important skills
Yes.
of the job. It's better to say that, I mean, than the cooperative instructive attitude of the rapporteurs. I mean, the shadow rapporteurs. The way you said the cooperative constructive attitude of the rapporteurs and the shadow rapporteurs as well. See, when you say it that way, it's like no one would notice anything sort of out of place.
Yeah. And o esforço de convergência here, that's basically just like the cooperation. I mean, the teamwork.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Right.
A bit very, very Portuguese, quite convoluted way of expressing that idea.
I can imagine the French and the Spanish sort of saying it something along those lines as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, the efforts towards one a word I sort of use quite a bit is alignment. That I find is a word that can be quite useful in these kinds of situations. You know, the efforts towards alignment made by the three institutions.
Yeah. And for those of you who are either working at the EU or if you want to, it's important to know that the reason why she mentions these three institutions is because they have something called a trilogue, which is where they sort of rubber stamp the legislation. It's all to do with dialogue and negotiations. Yeah,
That's a
that's
good
important.
word to know. That I haven't heard that word since for a long time. Right, trilogue. Okay, trialogue, trilogue.
Trilogue.
Trilogue. Okay. One thing I'd say, accordo provisorio. You said a provisionary with a provisional.
Provisional. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I highlighted this here because it's a Portuguese phenomenon where they use an adjective, or they take like a noun and make it an adjective. So they say that this provisional agreement is the definer of the agency's mandate, which doesn't make sense in English.
Yeah.
So, I would, if I were redoing it, I would say that we've arrived at this provisional agreement, which has defined the mandate for the agency.
Yeah, I think that sounds better, isn't it? That sounds more English, doesn't it? Yep.
Its mandate is now reinforced. It's based on multidisciplinary approach, given the dynamics of the market, given the way that drugs are consumed at this moment. Right. When it came to describing the phenomenon, which I said was an approach, I just forgotten what she called it.
Yeah.
She called
That's
it
a good
both an
word.
integrated. Although we do have an approach. I was correct.
I think approach is good for that word. Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah. Okay, so she said the approach was integrated and multidisciplinary. I decided to leave one out because
I think that's fair enough. Yeah, as I say, when you come to doing it, she speaks really fast. I mean,
is it normal to talk about a reinforced mandate? Or...
I think you can. Yeah, I think a reinforced a strengthened mandate.
Yeah.
What else might we say? Yeah, stronger mandate, strengthened mandate. Yeah.
And then she went on to speak about the complexity of the drugs market. And then she mentioned, I said social integration, but I think social reintegration is the right term, right?
Reintegration, yeah. So go on, give me that sentence again.
Okay. So the agency has a reinforced or strengthened mandate. It's based on an integrated and multidisciplinary approach. From I want to say point of view, but it doesn't really work. So given the complexity of the dynamics of the market, consumption, health, treatment, social reintegration, and security or safety.
Okay.
No, not an easy sentence.
No.
At this moment, drugs are widely available and they are marketed in different ways. Because of the way that all of this is done, we need more efficient responses. We need to be better at what we do when it comes to forecasting future situations.
Stop that. Okay.
I had a doubt when it came to commercialization of drugs because you don't really market drugs. And
right.
For me, I mean, in most countries, you don't market drugs. You sell them on the black market. And for me, immediately commercialização is marketing.
Right, the way them, yeah.
I would have gone with a venda de drogas. If I were her, but I wasn't. So yeah, I think that selling would have been a better selling of drugs.
I
Would be
mean,
a
you
better
could
option
just
than
use
marketing.
just play completely safe and just go with the cognate. Just come. I mean, there is we say, you can say commercialization. So if
Okay.
you're not if it's something, if you're not certain what she's getting at, sometimes again it's just better to play safe. And if the word sort of is more or less used in English, just I would perhaps stick to it. Yeah.
Okay.
What else was there?
I'd like to go through this sentence because it is a
Yeah,
very
go for
complex
it.
one.
Yep. Yep.
And I paused it when it came to the end of antecipação
Yep.
dos cenários.
Okay.
So at a time when drugs are more and more available, literally an increase in the
availability of drugs. Yeah.
Availability, yeah.
Or whatever, yeah.
There's an increased variety of ways that drugs circulate or are sold. There's also been a change, and this até means even. There's even been a change in the geography of drug manufacturing or production. And because of this, we need more effective responses. We need to be better at forecasting. You had to do a lot of reformulating.
There's
here,
a
I think,
lot
of
of this is a
because
I mean, this idea, this bit is nos I'm gonna just read it in my sort of accent. Nos colocam diante da exigência. You see, I think in Romance languages they use that construction a lot. They place us before the demand, but that just really doesn't sound English at all. And I was thinking this morning, I was thinking, because I said that you come across this in Spanish and French. I mean, I was thinking you could say are such that we have to respond more effectively. I think that's one. An English speaker might say that, with an increasing amount of available drugs, with a growing variety of means of circulation and commercialization, with changes in the geography of production, they're all such that we must respond more effectively, or they necessitate more effective responses. Something along that. I mean, that's just one word. Necessitate basically could take the place of nos colocam diante. That's like 5 words, right? Necessitate. You want to be certainly getting away from placing us before the demand. That sounds just wrong.
Yeah,
those were my ideas, but that's tricky, isn't it? Or as it are such that we need to, are such that situation is such that we need to. Especially when they talk about something
I'll use that, next time.
abstract. When you have a sentence like that, when an abstract occurrence, an abstract thing is making you do something, I think that is when we can formulate it like, is such that we need to. We don't really talk about it making us do something, I don't think, in English. That's more something physical, like a person, an object is making us do something.
Yes.
But when it's something, an abstract idea that is making us do something, I think we formulate it in English slightly differently.
Yeah.
And then you had, anticipação de scenario, forecasting scenarios. Yes. Anticipating, you could probably also just say anticipating scenarios. Yeah. Both, what did you say for competências reforçadas?
It's an interesting one because I think she's referring to capacity building.
Yeah, both. Better capacities. Yeah, capabilities, capacities. I think you're right. Yeah, enhanced capacities, maybe.
Yes.
Because we don't really talk about built capacities. We talk about building capacities as a verb, but we don't. When we use it as an adjective, I think we tend to say maybe enhancing capacities, for example. On we go.
When it comes to we need to be better at what we do when it comes to forecasting future situations, when it comes to health, prevention, social integration. All of this has to be tackled jointly. I was quite far behind there, so I think actually, you know what, if I remember correctly, I intentionally left that out because it was just going to get in the way.
Okay.
All of this. Here we are establishing a new EU
Uh-huh,
agency to deal with, and then I started. We have issues of health, prevention, treatment, social reintegration. And then this was very interesting. Caminho lado a lado. So basically they're walking side by side.
Right, right.
And that, that you can only explain, you have to explain it in a natural way. And so I said, must be dealt with jointly, must be dealt with as a whole, holistically, maybe.
Uh-huh. Yeah. That's a very UN word, holistically.
And then I missed this. She says, as it was, this is what the Parliament demanded, probably
As
in
required by
negotiations.
the European Parliament, yeah.
Now, this agency is in charge of involving civil society more, because this is, without doubt, an added value aspect to their current mission. Right, I got this wrong. When something is dotado de alguma coisa, it's basically given. It's
Right.
given
Yep.
greater capacity, for example. And I said it was in charge of, which is,
Yeah.
I don't think it was accurate enough.
Yeah, again, you get that in French, doté. You can, if you're not really high register, you could say like endowed with a
Yes.
greater capacity. But it just basically means it has it, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And here for uma mais-valia, I would have gone with advantage instead of added value. Added value is a very EU word in my
It's a
experience.
very UN word as well, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but an obvious advantage to help it achieve its mission would have been better.
Advantage, yeah, in maybe in layman's speak, but I think like you said, at the UN they like it's got added value. They're always some things having added value. So I don't, what's the expression? Give your audience what they want to hear, sort of,
Yeah, yes. Yeah. The agency now has more human resources and independence, not least its capacity to take action. Too much out, in my opinion. The new agency will have, I don't want to say a more robust budget. What do you think about that? I would say a higher budget. It's got more money.
Again, like I was saying, give the audience what they want to hear. That they love using robust. At the UN, they love that word. That's one of their sort of buzzwords. Things are robust. And again, even though you wouldn't say it in normal speaking to your friends, they do.
Okay.
At the UN, they definitely talk about having everything being things that you wouldn't perhaps imagine being robust suddenly become robust. More robust, a more robust budget. I mean, I think it could, in these circles, you can certainly say it, and and I think no one would look askance at you. I think you'd be fine.
Okay, fair enough. So she says that the new agency will have, contar com is to have, the agency will have a more robust budget. And this is interesting. Como há muito se mostrava necessário, basically what I understand by that is because it's clearly necessary. A lot has shown that it is necessary. And they will have more human resources. Dotar comes from dotado de. Dotar is the verb. So have.
I would think, but say maybe if I was to use an noun, I'd say maybe greater provision of.
Okay.
Is a word that I would use, is something I use a lot in dotation. I think here that works well, greater provision of human resources.
Okay.
If you just sometimes sometimes if you just want to if you're going word for word, that's the one that most closely fits, I think, here into the syntax as it is.
So they'll also have more independence and capacity for action. We need to better collect data so that we are better informed, and we also need to better understand the dynamics of the drugs consumption market. Okay. This is an interesting thing that I did leave out. I just didn't catch it at all. So she says strengthening the network of focal points, which is a very, I think, UN and EU word, focal points.
Don't play around with that. I wouldn't have thought. Leave that as
Yeah.
it is.
So we've got this network of focal points, and this means that we'll be able to collect more data, and we'll be able to analyze more data. We'll be able to produce more information. I think I would keep it like that. I mean, how else would you
Yeah,
say
I mean,
that?
what so we say bolstering the network of focal points will enable better data collection and analysis, production of information. Yeah.
Or publishing of information, maybe, which is what
If
I think the
anything, if I was
idea
going to use
is.
another word, I would say generation of information generation.
Oh,
I think
yeah, yeah.
they talk about. Yeah. See, publishing is might not have exactly the same connotation as maybe there's information, but maybe it's not necessarily published. I mean, again, I would be inclined to just stick with the production.
Yes. Okay.
And then go on just to the end of that sentence, yeah?
As well as, as well as detecting new market and consumption dynamics, besides sending out rapid alerts.
Is that the, do you know if rapid alerts, is that the sort of phrase they use or?
Whew, I don't know.
Early
Do you have a
warnings?
go-to for that?
I'm just
I think
wondering,
early warnings is the right one.
I think it might be, yeah, I was just wondering, I mean, I know in Spanish it's alerta temprana, so might be early warnings.
Yeah, that would make sense. Okay, move on. In this way, the agency will have a pragmatic and balanced approach. It is based on a scientific approach and on the progress of the last 28 years. Okay, so I said we're moving forward in this way in a decisive manner.
In a decisive manner. I was trying to think of like if there's one word just to encapsulate decisive. Yeah, decisively. We'll move forward decisively with determination. Yeah, decisively is good. One word.
Aprofundamento is coming up with something, designing something, drawing up something. So drawing up. Yes.
Whenever I hear approfondir in French, I tend to go with enhancing. That was the. I mean, that's
yes.
what at least in French is what I. If in doubt, I'll just enhance. And enhancing our whatever pragmatic approach.
Yeah. Okay, so enhancing a pragmatic, balanced, and scientifically based approach.
Yeah.
And this, yes. So this threw me off and took a while for me to think through in the moment. But I think the idea is that when something like sediment builds up over time, in like the bottom of a river, for example, and so she's saying that we've added like bits and pieces to this thing for 28 years, and so my understanding of that in the moment was progress, that we're building upon the progress of the last 28 years.
The idea that came to my mind, the image that I had was of forging. This sounds like something that's been forged over 28 years.
Okay, yes.
Do you like that?
I do, yeah.
I do a lot of forging generally in my interpretation.
Okay.
Forging cooperation, forging progress, yeah, forge.
It is essential for us to have sustainable approaches at union level and in member states. And its reputation attests to this within and without the EU. Okay, so the observatory has been an essential instrument for developing integrated, sustainable, or rather integrated and sustained responses at a union level, that is very EU speak. Union
Is that
level.
okay? They do say that, right? Right. That's good to know. Okay.
And in member states. And its reputation has borne witness to this, has testified to this in and outside of the EU. But what I said
Out
was
with. You
within
said
and without,
without.
which
I
didn't
think you.
sound right.
Yeah. Out, within and out with. I think is what you meant, right?
Yeah.
Or outside. I mean, within and outside of, or out with. I mean, where I come from, we say out with. Do you say out with in South Africa?
No, we do not.
You don't. Maybe it's a UK thing. Out with, as in being the opposite of within, out with, as well. Yeah, as born out. Maybe I was thinking also for combina testa as born out by its reputation within and out with the EU.
Now, we are creating the conditions for better international cooperation, and we all have a lot to gain here. The tense here, I think, was a bit out because I said we are creating the conditions for better or more international cooperation, but the idea was the conditions have been created.
Yeah. Did you skip this first bit? Yeah, agencia continuará. Did that slip?
No, I didn't have time to say it, but I would have said the agency will continue to. Now, what is that referring to? That's the verb ser plus u. I think she's saying that the agency is now replacing the observatory, the monitoring center. So the agency will continue to do so, to continue to function as the as the European monitoring center, but in a bolstered way, with more capacity. Now that the conditions have been created for more international cooperation, and we all have a lot to gain from this.
Yeah, we all have a lot to gain, a lot to. We can all benefit from this, I guess, is a synonym.
I'm sure that the agency, having had its capacity increased, will now contribute to significant progress when it comes to public policy, ensuring more efficiency in order to respond to current and future challenges. I think that shows how fast it was.
Yeah, anyone trying this, I mean, Brandon did have to leave out quite a bit, but again, I challenge you all, just do the statement without preparation. I mean, without the text, and you'll see that it's very, very difficult. But you got to get through it somehow, don't you? So go on. What would you have done differently now here?
I would say I am convinced that the agency, with a greater capacity to take information based on scientific evidence and provide the European institutions and member states with this information, and in this way will contribute to significant progress in the area of public policy, ensuring that public policy is more effective, more efficient, in order to respond to current and future needs.
Okay. Yeah, with a greater capacity to. What's colocar in this context? Colocar in.
It goes together with audispor, so it's colocar algo ao dispor de. So it's
make available
something at their disposal.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Scientific evidence-based information. So yeah, if so it's hard in this case to hold back from the speaker. I mean, it's always nice to be able to just sort of give yourself a few words leeway. In which case he'd hear informação baseada em evidências científicas, and then you'd say scientific evidence-based information, because that's a bit of a buzzword these days. Evidence-based, all our work is evidence-based. But again, if you're going at the speed she's going, you're probably just going to say to make available information based on scientific evidence too, But that is a bit of I think the informação baseada em evidências científicas is a bit of a package, right?
Yes.
How's my Portuguese accent, by the way? Am I getting in the right places? My accent, more or less. Let's go on.
Okay, we're almost done. This is the final one, the
Have we
final
not, have we not
paragraph.
skipped the go back, go back?
No, we didn't skip anything.
Okay, and then let me just see. Oh, progresso significativo. So I think a word I've been using a lot for significative recently is meaningful as well. If you want to just say something different, yeah. Meaningful progress. Just instead of just always saying significance, which is the easy one. If you want to just jazz things up a bit, providing maybe perhaps greater effectiveness and efficiency to responding to present and future needs. Okay, so yeah, we're almost here. We're going on to the final paragraph.
This provisionary agreement is a source of great pleasure for us, but the task is not over. Yes, I said provisionary again.
Provisional, yeah.
Provisional agreement. So approving this provisional agreement, or maybe enacting the agreement, is without doubt a great. This is always something I actually struggle to express when I'm working. Is the way that they say that they like it, basically, in whether it's French or Portuguese.
Yeah.
The enormous satisfação. You can't say we're enormously satisfied with it because it sounds ridiculous. What are your options?
Is a source of enormous satisfaction a source of?
Okay. Yeah.
Perhaps. Although she doesn't say. There's no noun, is there? She just says enormous. It's very satisfying. It's very gratifying. Is another good synonym. Something's very gratifying if you're pleased with it. One thing I was going to ask for dúvida. So in French, when you hear sans doute, you've got sans doute and sans aucune doute. And what I was taught is that sans aucun doute is like without any doubt, without a shadow of a doubt. Whereas sans doute is like just saying is sure. It's like probably. It's not as strong. And I just noticed that you said I'm wondering if it's the same in Portuguese. Like so that. I was thinking, the approval of this provisional agreement is indeed a source of satisfaction, but our work doesn't end here. I'm just wondering, in Portuguese, do you have like sem aucun dúvida or whatever the equivalent would be?
I don't think it applies to Portuguese.
Doesn't apply to Portuguese.
I'm not a mother tongue speaker. But sem dúvida. I mean, what about sin deuda in Spanish? Is it the same as a French, or is
it? I think they've got a stronger. I think they've got two. Sin algún. I think they've got sin duda and sin alguna duda, and it's the alguna, which is like the strong, like without shadow of a doubt. Whereas sin duda is just slightly more. It's softer. It's not as emphatic, shall we say?
Okay. I was going to say I don't recall ever hearing someone in Portuguese say sem nenhuma dúvida or saying alguma dúvida.
Okay.
As you know, literally saying without any doubt. I've never heard that. Maybe
it
exists, but
maybe in Portuguese they don't have it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then she says, but our work hasn't finished.
Right, our work goes on. There's still a long way to go. Yeah, you can adapt that to whatever you're most comfortable with.
The agency is now looking to the future and will run ahead with its mandate and will see its regulation fully implemented. Okay. So another option here might be the agency is forward-looking.
Yeah, I like that. That's good. That sounds quite UNEs, EUEs. Did they call it EUEs like for EU language? Like we sometimes say, that's very UNEs sounding. You don't say like EUEs.
No, we don't.
Okay. So go on.
So the idea here, cumprir o mandato, is to fulfill, to fully fulfill its mandate.
Or deliver. I deliver on a lot. That's my favorite these days. I'm constantly delivering on things.
Yeah, very convoluted way of saying that this is the mandate that we've given the agency. So outorgar is to grant something, really, but here it's just entrusted them with this mandate.
Yeah, that's been entrusted, the mandate that's been entrusted to it. And the way she's speaking, that's, I think, agora lhe otorgamos, that's something you could probably leave out. A forward-looking agency that fully delivers on its mandate will require effective implementation. Yeah, I think that under those circumstances, those are just unnecessary words that can be left out.
Yeah.
And it's a regulamento. Go on.
Yeah. I was not too sure what that was referring to. So it could be referring to the internal regulations of the agency, which is what I would go with.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I know with, for example, in the UN, when they talk about like there's a body, like a committee, and it has a règlement, those tend to be its rules of procedure. That's
rules
the word.
Procedure. Yes.
Son règlement, it's its rules of procedure. So I don't know if it's that, although that tends to be a very internal thing, just how the committee functions at an internal level.
I'm very sure that's what it is.
Say again?
I'm very sure that that's what it is.
You think that's what you think it might be rules of procedure?
Yeah.
Okay.
This task is up to all of us. The agency will be scrutinized here in Parliament as its representatives in the board of directors will also. Unfortunately, thank you. I started the speech badly and I ended the speech badly. Anyway.
So those are the two most important bits to do well.
Yes. So this mission or this task is up to us, to all of us.
I think you can probably say what falls on us all, falls on all our shoulders.
Okay.
If you want,
So that Parliament is scrutinizing the agency here in Parliament, as well as the representatives that we have designated, nominated,
appointed,
will also appointed. The representatives that we have appointed will do the scrutinizing on the board of directors.
Yeah, I think you could say something like a mission that falls on us all, both in a scrutiny of the agency here in Parliament, as well as through the representatives that we appoint to its board of directors. Would that work, perhaps?
Yeah, much better. And then she ends the speech by saying "Vamos a isto," which means let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's do
this. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there you have it.
There we go. There we go. So that's try that without statement, and you'll see why Brandon struggled at times. It's very fast, very dense. What are the sort of main takeaways for you, Brandon?
I would say that my takeaway from this speech would be to come into to get into the booth and do a speech like this. You need to have nicely pre-cooked ways of speaking and almost automatic responses to things that you are going to expect to hear. I think you mentioned many times just better, smoother ways of expressing an idea, which took me a while to get around because I didn't have them ready, at my disposal. So I would want to memorize some ready to go phrases, which will help me speed through when I need to without having to waste too much energy, like trying to work out what on earth the speaker is trying to say. That'll be my main takeaway.
Okay, what about in terms of vocabulary? Was there anything here that was really new to you or that you've learned?
I think that the vocabulary here was not so much drug related, even though the speech was technically on drugs. The speech wasn't on drugs, the speech was about drugs, but the vocabulary was a lot of the vocabulary had to do with the institution itself. So when it became operational, it has a board of directors. It has
those kinds
rules of procedure.
That
kind of vocabulary, I think, was important.
That's very good. That sort of very bureaucratic sort of, I guess you could say, vocab. You're quite right. The main thing for me was if you just scroll down. Stop. No momento em que aumento okay, yeah. So that just got me thinking was, as I say, I talked about it as we were going through, of what to do when you have this very romance expression, this very Romance structure of placing the challenge before us. And as I say, that really got me thinking that they really do that in all the Romance languages. They maybe even in Russian. That's just that structure, which, as I say, that if you try and just replicate it in English, it really doesn't come out sounding right. And it's just think to yourself of a way of expressing that nicely in English. Again, you're comfortable with. As I say, I gave you a couple of ideas. Necessitating will necessitate, and then you have to turn. Okay, da exigência de respostas mais efficaces. Yeah, okay, necessitates a more effective response. That necessitate, as I say, takes the place of that whole string of words. Nos colocam diante de exigência, or say something along the lines of is such that we have to do this. Find something that you're comfortable with. That's the main takeaway for me from this text. Okay, well, Brandon, thank you very much for again providing us, well, for coming on the show and for being brave enough to put your effort at this text up for us to, well, to criticize, but also there's a lot to learn from it as well, learning new stuff. That's how we improve, right? We look at stuff that we've struggled with and we try and find out ways of how we could do it better in future. So any final words, Brandon, to the Interpretation Station fans?
Well, it's been a pleasure to do some Portuguese again on this channel, and we'll definitely try and get some more out in the coming months. Just depends on availability and workload and stuff. But yeah, I think it's a good speech to deal with, and I think there's a lot of stuff that we can learn from it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as I say, oh, you guys, that you got there's a real treasure trove of statements out there where on that European Parliament website where this was taken from, and yeah, it's so interesting to get a different style of speaker from the ones you usually get at the UN. Well, that's pretty much all for today's episode. Please do like, share, and subscribe. Please do comment if you have any contributions of your own for the vocabulary. That's really, I really like it when people can comment. We can sort of start an interactive discussion. If you think there's anything that you could have done better yourselves, like I say, please do put it in the text. And that pretty much, for now, is it for today's episode. I'll let you say goodbye, Brandon.
Goodbye, everyone. See you next time.
Hopefully it won't be in the not too distant future.
See, 2 years' time.
Exactly. All right, well, with that, all that remains to be said is that episode 186 of the Interpretation Station stands adjourned.